Hey folks, how's it going? Dr. Spin. Eclectic album reviews and general musical meanderings. I got another Roundup post for you, things I've just been listening to for the past 4 weeks or so. And these albums are going to be put in Tier 2 towards our Top 20 of 2023. If you want to get in on that, please sign up for my Patreon below. But for now, let's go on and get started. First one I got up is the Dirty Projectors, Bitte, Orca. This 2007 release from the Dirty Projectors was kind of their breakthrough album. They'd had several albums before this one, but this is the one that really pushed them through to the next level. I jumped on board with them with the following album, Swing Low Magellan, which is a really, really big player for me back in 2014, I believe, whenever I was listening to that one. And this album didn't disappoint. Of course, David Longsworth is still the main actor in this particular iteration of the Dirty Projectors. But the input of Amber Kaufman and Angel Deordian really can't be underestimated. From what I've read, David Longsworth really wrote a lot of these songs sort of as odes to these two women singers that were in his group. And their presence is really important in this album, I think. Gives all the vocal arrangement kind of a vaguely exotic feel. The thing I love about the Dirty Projectors is they're one of those groups that really does well with the sound sample, because I could explain what these guys sound like until I'm blue in the face, but really they sound like the Dirty Projectors. They're one of the most unique sounding bands, especially I think in this period of their music, that I can kind of come off with. If there's any corollary that I would put with them, it's kind of the Talking Heads. They have the same eclectic confidence that David Byrne had at the height of the Talking Heads career, but definitely don't really sound like the Talking Heads. It's more of an ethos that they have in common with the group. And Bitte Orca is an album that will grow on you. The first time you hear it, it's going to sound a little bit like gibberish, so just prepare yourself for that if you've never heard them before. But digging in just a little bit deeper will show just exactly how tuneful these songs are and the way in which they pull in such a wide variety of song styles to make what the Dirty Projectors sound like so unique. Okay, next up I got Makaya McCraven's In These Times. Makaya McCraven comes from a very musical and artistic family. He was raised in Amherst, and he's a jazz drummer. The style that he shows here is this really cool hybridized jazz hip-hop feel in a way. McCraven's style on In These Times really shows a very delicate balance between composition and improvisation. And I think that's always an interesting dichotomy to examine. It has these flavors of hip-hop, has these flavors of jazz, has these really kind of rich, complex orchestral arrangements as well. And I really think that the strings that he uses here have a way of recalling the past. It gives it this slight nostalgic feel. But despite that, it's very identifiably contemporary. And one of my favorite things about it is the way that he's able to take these really asymmetrical time signatures and make them feel very relaxed and very groovy. You probably won't realize he's playing for something in 11 until you really break it down, because there's a way that he makes these melodies and the feel just glide across sort of stuttering feel that you normally get with asymmetrical time signatures. So well crafted in that regard and well played. Okay, next up I got Parannoul's After the Magic. Parannoul is an anonymous South Korean artist who, in his own, description of himself, says that he's just a student writing music in his bedroom. Now, if that's the case, it's a very compelling example of what's possible in sort of bedroom pop recording, because this is a fabulously rich recording with very deep and very complicated, I think, production aspects to it. According to Parannoul, this album was inspired by his dreams. And it's music that, in his estimation, was not what you expected, but what he had always wanted to make. After the Magic feels like a real summary of a lot of the music I was listening to when M83 was really big on my radar, and My Bloody Valentine was as well. So there's definitely a connection in that shoegaze style of music. Really feel like M83 is a good touch point for this one. And in some ways, this really pushes the envelope on this idea behind shoegaze music that, where things become so loud that they almost become soothing. And that's not meant to be a criticism. It's actually one of the things that makes this album, I think, so distinctive. And really great use of melody, which wasn't always the case necessarily with shoegaze music. Melody really drives this stuff along. It's very hummable, to the point where the fact that he sings in Korean, that language barrier, doesn't really cause a problem. And next up I got Hirshikesh Hirway's Runes I Used to Call My Own. Hirshikesh Hirway is the creator of the podcast Music Exploder, and in which he delves into music and talks to people who make the music that we listen to, and gets their insights on the albums that they've made, music that they made. Very much like what I like to do, music appreciation, expanding people's knowledge of the complexities of the music that they listen to, what goes behind it, what inspires it. And Hirshikesh Hirway's success as a podcaster earned him a spot on Netflix, where they actually made this into a TV series. But Hirshikesh Hirway also, along the way, allowed this experience of talking to musicians about what they found important in their music to influence him. He had always kind of had his own music on the back burner, and finally got to the point where he was inspired enough by these interviews, these famous musicians and their stories about their music, to kind of invest in his own music. Because of his connections through the podcast, he has a lot of really high-powered musicians that collaborate with him on this album. Yo-Yo Ma's on here. One of the members from Clipping is in here. Several high-profile musicians helped him make this album.
I guess that's how it is now. The only place you'll appear, we'll have to meet in some shadow between there and here.
Runes I Used to Call My Own is a set of chill, almost ASMR style music. One of the closest connections I feel like I can make with it is sort of the more relaxed side of Peter Gabriel's later work. You talk like Blood of Eden or songs like that, with a very subdued vibe, but still has a very intimate quality to it. Okay, next up I got P.O.S.'s Chill Dummy. P.O.S. is kind of this underground hip-hop artist that has his roots in punk rock music and kind of crossed over into doing more underground hip-hop type stuff in later years. His album Never Better was a really big favorite of mine in 2008, 2009. And the punk roots that he sort of displayed on Never Better are a little bit downplayed on these later albums, especially with Chill Dummy. It feels a little bit more like a standard hip-hop album, which resulted in almost more studied hip-hop feeling.
Keep a milli on it, all bets on, let's go. Keep it on to the breakdown, on to the breakthrough, so on and so it goes. No one knows dick except we all alone, and that's too shout. So it goes, never so sick, so I just hope last. Paid up, gain up. Either way you locked up, opened up. Either way you toss back up or a bit of cleaner vision, whether high road or low road. Either way we can live like thieves, we can live like kings. They can be the same thing. Yeah, they're exactly the same thing. Either way you.
His lyrics are still relentlessly antagonistic. They're intellectual, but still relatable. And that's really, I think, one of the biggest strengths of this album. And finally, I got Gospel, The Loser. This is the second album by Gospel, but in like a very long time. There's a big gap between their two albums that they made. And initially, they were known as kind of being a post-punk screamo group with a little bit of a technical side. This release, which is much more recent, just from last year, I would call it a full-on progressive rock release. A short description would be Fugazi meets Rush's Hemispheres. Gospel is instrumentally devastating. I really appreciate the hard rock, progressive rock style that they have in this album. So much progressive rock is kind of leaned towards progressive metal. And I wouldn't call these guys progressive metal. It's really in the style of like Rush and Blue Oyster Cult, that kind of progressive, heavy progressive rock from the 70s. I do think the scream vocals are unique for sure, and I think they're effective for the point of this album. But man, musically, gospel can't be messed with. And that's all I got for you this time around, guys. So please, if you like this video, like and subscribe, share it out with your friends. Also follow me over on Spotify. I'm putting these tracks up in a master playlist. Please check out my Patreon page. You get a little bit of a lead on all the music that we're listening to. So take the time to do that if you have the opportunity. Until you see you next time, I'll catch you guys on the flip side.